Welcome everybody to the 2.0 Grandma Show. My name is Dr. Marsha Carter McLean, and I am your host. And I have the distinct pleasure of sharing with you two incredible people that you will need to know. We need to know all about what they're doing out here, because as grandparents, oh God, we need all the help that we can get, okay, when it comes to those grandkids. So it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Jerry Witkovsky and Miss Deanna Shoss. So please, you guys, please tell us about who you are, and then I want us to jump right into our book. Or your book, actually. I'm already claiming it because we're doing the book club. But anyway.
I love it. That's wonderful.
We'd love to have you as a partner.
Yes, thank you.
So, yeah.
All right, please. Who would like to go first?
Jerry, this time you go first. Tell us all about you and what an amazing grandparent you are.
I'm a social worker. I'm 95 years old. I work for the Jewish Community Centers. That was been my only agency I worked for. My job was different at the JCC. I was the director of our resident camp for 15 years. I worked with teenage gangs when I first got out of graduate school. And I retired when I was, I think, 71, something like that. And I met this lovely lady, Deanna. We had a mutual friend that introduced us to each other. And I soon found that working with Deanna, that we unleashed our creativity and we created this marvelous book. And we're very proud of the book. We're proud of what we've achieved and the kind of comments we're getting. I have 6 grandchildren. My oldest is 40. And I have 3 great-grandchildren. My oldest is 5. 2 boys and 1 girl. And I live in assisted living now. I've lived here a year, and it's a wonderful place to be. And I'm just a happy older person.
That's the goal for all of us, okay? Be happy. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Jerry. Really appreciate you. And, you know, your story is just so incredible. 95, still going, writing books. You are, as the kids say, you are doing the doggone thing, okay? Yes. I'm excited to even know you. Wow. It's such an honor. Thank you.
Yeah. And you can imagine for me being able to work with Jerry. Jerry and I came together probably about 7 or 8 years ago now. As I had a marketing business, Jerry came as a marketing client. So I did a lot of digital and social media for what I call non-digital natives, people who didn't grow up with technology. So we're with Facebook, we've done YouTube videos and you know, Twitter and all that sorts of things. What's amazing, what we found by co-creating, and my own background is in marketing and writing, what we found as co-creators is that it was a really wonderful connection to unleash each other's creativity. A lot of my work, I speak several languages and have done a lot of work in the diversity, equity, inclusion, so the intercultural and intergenerational arena. And, you know, what is the epitome of an intergenerational relationship but a grandparent and a grandchild? So we took some of those approaches and sort of overlaid them with that, you know, that just innate and intrinsic love that grandparents have for grandkids to really talk about how you enter each other's world. So kind of fun to take all that we both knew professionally and then to apply it to this really important relationship and a need, you know, with the mental health crisis. The need to help teens and older adults is so important right now.
Yes, yes. And I love the title of the
first
book.
Here. I wrote a book. It's called The Grandest Love. And I couldn't get a publisher, so I published it myself.
There you go.
And that's what got me started writing about this. And we want to talk about the adult children as well, Marsha.
Okay.
They're critical to the success of the family. And they're the parents of these teenagers. And these teenagers are not our kids. They're the kids of their mom and dad. And how do we play a role in that. We're not partners with our adult children. We're grandparents. We are who we are, and what do we choose to do as grandparents? And we'll talk about that if you wish.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think that I love the fact that you guys wrote about these two worlds meeting, and you're right. The grandparents, I mean, the parents are actually, I know I like to of it this way. I love my grandkids. I want to hang out with them. I want to be with them, but I always have to go through the parents to get to them, right? I mean, there's no way around it. And so sometimes when I want to hang out with them, it might not be convenient for them. So you're right. So, that middle person, so to speak, you have to have also a good relationship with them, because I've heard stories where grandparents cannot even interact. They're not even allowed. And I'm like, oh my God, that would break my heart. That would break my heart. So I think the work that you're doing is commendable, because there are some folks out there that don't have relationships with their grandchildren because of the parents, or something that happened with them when they were, maybe when they were growing up. I'm not really even sure. Of course, there's lots of different reasons why. But I think this work that you're doing is so important. So yes,
well, we urge grandparents to really look at that relationship over the years with their adult children. And there's a chapter in the book that talks about forgiveness. And there's a way our research showed that we urge the grandparent to write a letter to their adult children, because when you write, you think better, and then the adult children are able to read the letter and not just hear voices over the telephone or see messages over the technology machine.
And you can read it over and over and over again.
That's
because
right.
Sometimes you need that. Yes, for it to make a difference. Oh my God, that's so beautiful. I love that. So that chapter on writing that letter, tell us about some of the other chapters in there. Oh my God.
You go, Dee.
Sure. And one thing too, just for frame of reference. So the whole time Jerry and I were writing the book, I do represent the adult child generation. So my son was a teenager the whole time that we were writing the book. And what I found is that when the adult child is part of that, when they help bring the grandparent and the grandchild closer together, the whole family comes together. So as far as the difference, each chapter is focused on a different exercise that grandparents can do, starting with even just opening up your vulnerability. Because as a grandparent, you really need to open yourself up. And we always say there's unconditional love, but that does mean that when it's developmentally normative for a teenager, one of my favorite stories with my son was the first time he goes, "I hate you, mommy." And I looked at him and I said, "Oh, you're being developmentally normative."
Right.
It was,
what a way to turn it around. Yeah.
It was. And it became a joke, like other times when you could tell he was just itching for a fight, as sometimes teenagers are. It's hard to break away from those adults that have been the ones leading your life as you're trying to be independent. And so it's, rather than having the conversation always been like, "Hi, how are you? How was school?" It's about reading the things that they're reading, or learning about the things that your grandchildren are interested in. So the conversation is more like, "Hey, what did you think about in To Kill a Mockingbird when this happened?" So all of a sudden you're talking about something that's completely a neutral subject. That gives you an in to at least be talking. And so that's part of entering their world. You've got to understand what their world is like.
And as you were saying that, I'm thinking, that's like relationship building 101, right? Get out of your own head and stop being selfish and think about somebody else, right? And really get to know what's going on with them. I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah. And
my daughter is very active at her synagogue, and she came back from service this morning and she said, "Dad, what is holiness to you?" Holiness to me is caring and loving. And what does that mean when you teach your grandchildren or share with your grandchildren? My son, who's a psychiatrist, tells never use the word teach. How do you share with your family that you love them and you care about them? What are the ways to do that? once my granddaughter said to me, "Grandpa, can I tell you a secret you won't tell my mother?" And I said, "Well, let me think about that." And then I talked to her mother, who was a psychiatrist, and I said, "Can she tell me secrets that I don't have to tell you?" And she said, she thought about it, and she said, "You can tell them, they can tell you secrets, but you need to tell me if it's about sexuality, if it's about suicide, if it's about major problems that she's having with people, so that in the high school that we studied at Deerfield High School in Illinois, they taught us grandparents that there's a thing that goes around with technology called cyber bullying. The kids will walk down the hall, take a picture of a girl, and say, "Isn't she fat?" And then send that picture to 50 kids immediately, and they all then pick on this girl. So that cyberbullying is beating up kids in technology world. So that her mother said, "Yes, so I told my granddaughter and my grandkids, you can tell me secrets, but I have to share the following." And I shared with them what the following was. Then I said, "If you need help telling your parents about that, then I'll help you do that within 24 hours. But if it's dangerous to you, I'm going to tell them right away."
What That's a beautiful lesson. Yeah, because you want to keep them safe. You want to make sure they're safe, and I like that your daughter said, "Well, you have to tell me if it's under these conditions."
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yeah, and that bullying and all kinds of things happen so often with children these days. It's a whole nother world that I know I did not experience growing up. What were you going to add, Deanna?
Well, there's a book. There's a chapter in the book about technology, and we hope
Okay.
that grandparents read it, because the technology is very brutal to teenagers. New York Times and Atlantic Magazine have come out recently, in the last couple of years, about what is really hurting teenagers, and the technology is really beating them up.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I see a book club night just for that one alone. Yes, Deanna.
Oh, I was going to say this whole idea of, so for example, something like cyberbullying. So one of the ideas is where grandparents, first of all, looking at boundaries, the idea of keeping secrets or not, because trust transcends all the generations. So that idea of how to talk to your adult children to know what's okay and what isn't. The other one along those lines is telling your parents what stories maybe you don't want them to tell about you, because that's also a breach of trust. And your stories of childhood they're your stories.
Right.
You don't want parents telling your kids until you're ready to do it, possibly with a lesson of what you learned of why you shouldn't do that. But those are the kinds of conversations to have, though, when you're looking at really healthy boundaries across the generations, because it is a team. With the mental health crisis, it's a team of people. You want everyone who loves your child to be supportive of your child.
In our book, there are 50 letters from grandchildren. We urge grandparents to write to their grandchildren or talk to them. What did you learn from your grandparents? What did you learn from your grandparents? And the letters that are written are just beautiful. I have one that Deanna will tell me when it's time to read.
Wow. Oh my. Yeah, I want to hear that. This is the perfect spot to take a break and come back. We'll do a little quick break and then we'll come right back. And yes, so you have my permission to read the letter. Gianna, can you give Jerry permission to read the letter when we come back? Okay, thank you.
I didn't know I had that much power, but yes, thank you. I would love it if you would read it, Jerry.
Okay, great. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, so Jerry, are you ready with that letter? Because I know this is going to be something phenomenal.
Okay,
I can't wait for our
I'll read the
listeners to
letter.
hear. Yes.
It was written by my granddaughter, Jessica, when she was 28 for my first book, The Grandest Love. And she's now 40. And the letter starts, "Camp has always been a very special place for my family. It was my home away from home growing up. I truly believe that my love for nature and wildlife began at camp." That's the camp where I was the director of.
Okay.
And the camp is called Camp Shy. One special thing that my grandfather and I would do together at camp was waking up before sunrise to watch the deer. We would walk to the lake and quietly observe the deer drinking from the lake as the sun rose. It was always a spectacular sight. I learned that sometimes you can take enormous pleasure in the most basic aspects of nature and life. My favorite lesson that I learned from my grandfather at camp is to always leave your campsite better than you found it. If you are camping and you see trash on the ground, pick it up and throw it out. Even if it's not yours, it's not a difficult thing to do and makes a huge difference in restoring the natural beauty of the land. Love, Jessica.
How beautiful. Simple to the point, but very beautiful.
What's wonderful about the letters?
It was a wonderful letter to receive from her.
Yes.
So grandparents will love the letters they get.
Yes. I want some letters. Okay, go ahead, Deanna. I'm thinking now what my grandkids will write me some letters. Go. Yeah.
Well, what is wonderful about the letters is, so the book has Where Two Worlds Meet has all these letters from grandchildren writing what they learned from their grandparents, and the grandchildren are anywhere from like 18 to even 80 when they wrote the letters. And that's what's so fantastic when you realize as a grandparent, you don't always know what your grandchildren are learning from you. And so asking them to write it, it can be really powerful to know what those lessons are. And often it's the things that they weren't even the ones that you said out loud. They were the ones that they learned by watching, how sturdy you were, or exactly. Or there was one, the grandparent was a Holocaust survivor, and they just that strength and that commitment to social justice that now drove the work they were doing. They totally attributed and could trace back to their grandparent. So very powerful. And you just don't know what people are learning, but people learn by watching you.
Yes. Wow. That is beautiful. I love that. Now I want all my grandkids to write a letter. Maybe we'll do a little, when we do our next grand trip, maybe I'll have them all write a letter and let them seal it and, and do it in their own way, in their own time. Oh, that's so beautiful because you're right. You never know what they learn from you. I know from my own grandma, she taught me how to be an entrepreneur, how to have your own mind about things and to do your own thing. And even as a woman, to be able to, know that independence is important to you, and that you should always strive to be an independent. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. She was definitely my inspiration to do the work that I'm doing now around grandma. So yes. Oh my God, that's so beautiful. I love how you brought that home. Yeah, that was wonderful. So now tell me, why did you guys write this book? What was the rationale? What was the behind it?
I mean, I can address, Jerry, if that's okay. I'll start with in terms of why this book for this age is because there are a lot of resources out there. I think, Dr. Marshall, you even said you found this in terms of like grandparents getting older and how you have to stay current with tech or like how all the new ways to connect. What we found is there's tons of books, when kids are little, you get them a sweet treat or you go to the train museum and it's so easy and they just adore you. And when kids turn 12, research actually shows developmentally, it's when kids turn 12 that they start to break away because they're trying to assert who they're going to be as people in the world. And so there were a couple things happening. One is kids need you more than ever. So they're breaking away right at the same time that their bodies are changing, ideas are changing, there's, more challenges, things are getting harder. So they're breaking away right at the time they really need something stable in their life. So it's a time when they need grandparents. There weren't a lot of books about grandparenting. And so that's where it really was there's a need for this. I would also say, and I'll let Jerry take it from there, is that, you've probably already gotten this from talking to Jerry. He's a lifelong learner. And so he likes to know why. He likes to know about the ideas. He wants to know, how you feel about things, how you come to ideas. Those are the kinds of conversations that people don't always ask teenagers. 12 and 13-year-olds, they just assume, oh, I bet you're on your phone all the time. Well, guess what? They've got these amazing developing minds. And so the book and just the Jerry's approach, this intergenerational approach, gives tools to ask the kind of questions that allow you as a grandparent to remove the assumptions from your eyes and really let them be them. So it was needed in the market for that age, and it's a tool that grandparents want to stay engaged. They want to stay involved even as kids get older.
All right, Marcia, I have a task for you.
Yes.
When I lived in Deerfield, I went to the high school and I met the principal, and I said, I would like you to consider having an open house for grandparents of incoming freshmen, so that grandparents can enter the world of their grandchildren and know the world they're going to go into in this high school. She said, Jerry, the most important person in my life was my grandmother. I will do it. So she set up a meeting where she invited the grandparents of incoming freshmen so they could teach us in the fall of what the world was going to be like for their grandchildren. And they took us on a tour of the school. But first we met with a panel of sophomores to teach us what the freshmen are going to go through, making friends and all that, because they came from different schools. So then we had a tour, and we met the freshman grandparents, met their grandparents, and took them down the halls. We saw some of them holding hands, going down the halls. Here's the science room. Here's this room. Here's this thing. Here's the gym. Here's the pool. And we met the head of the English department. She gave the grandparents a list of all the books the grandchildren will read in the 4 years they were going to be at the high school. So you could read the book, the Mockingbird book, and then your grandchild was going to read it, and you can discuss it.
Yes.
My son also taught me, the psychiatrist, taught me, always ask your grandchildren, tell me a story about school. Never ask your grandchild, what did you learn in school today?
Right.
And you'll get the usual nothing,
right.
or it was terrible, the teacher's a dummy, all that kind of stuff. Tell me a story about what you learned in school today, or tell me a story, not what you learned, tell me a story about school. And then you may learn about the friendships, you may learn about the bullying, you may learn about but never have your think of that you were going to teach your grandchildren something. Always remember you're going to share with your grandchildren, and they're going to share with you. If you open your heart and your soul to what you're going through as an older adult. I do that now at my age, and what's it like for me to live here, the sadness I see, the joy I see, stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh my God. So my task is to do that at my grandson's school.
We have written a book on this.
Yes.
Deanna and I have written a book on how to start the school program.
Yes.
What's the title of that book, Deanna?
Well, actually, there's a whole chapter in Where Two Worlds Meet that talks about how to set up a program at your kid's high school.
Wonderful. Yeah. I love that. I love that idea, because I have two that are about to go into high school right now. Well, next year, of course. And this is prime time to even ask that question. Now, two different schools. Yes.
Go through this.
Yes, that's a wonderful idea, because it is, for me, high school is a scary place, because I, not only have I been to high school, but I also did my student teaching there in my master's program. And I was shocked at the way the children were in high school. I was like, oh my God. And I said, was I ever like this? Those kinds of questions. And I know how scary that is. And so, yes, that's a wonderful idea. And I commend that principal for doing that.
Yeah, they did this for about 10 years. Wow. And some grandparents came in from, like, they lived in Minnesota or they lived in Wisconsin. Right. and they flew in to have this opportunity to be with their grandchildren at their school.
That is an incredible idea.
So the
Now,
school is
have
their
you?
world. The school is
Yes.
their world.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So when give you a little quick story. My one of my 13-year-old grandsons, he just turned 13. So his parents are divorced, and so sometimes he's with one parent, sometimes with the other parent. And so he was supposed to come with my son to our house, and he didn't come. And so I'm like, well, where's Langston? And he said, well, he said he didn't want to come. What do you mean he didn't want to come? I look forward to this. I'm thinking about me, of course. I'm like, I look forward to this time, to see him. And so that day he didn't come. The next day he didn't come. So I'm like, okay, now wait a minute, something's wrong here. So I said, I'm going to his school because I know he's going to be there. So this, just what you just said, is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that with me, because I was getting hurt that I was not able to see him. It was like 2 weeks in a row and I didn't see him. And I see them at least 2 times a week, every week. And it was like there was a void. And I told my husband, I said, oh, I'm going to the school because I know he'll be there. And I never thought about, thinking much, big picture, and thinking about all the other grandparents that don't get to see their children or their grandchildren at school because of something going on, with the relationship between the parents or whatever, the adult parents. But I'm so grateful for you sharing that, because that gives me a whole new outlook and a whole new thing, I think, to focus
the
on with
grandparents
him.
ought to attend the assemblies when they invite the
Yes,
adult children.
yes,
They ought to
yes,
attend. They ought to go to the football games, the basketball
yes,
games,
yes.
anything they can attend, and just wave to their grandchild.
Right. Yeah.
You don't have to get involved in the discussion because
Yes.
the guy is trying to get this girl to be his
Right.
girlfriend, and you get involved. That's my grandmother. Okay.
I know, right, right. Yeah, but that's beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. So now tell us where people can get the book, all of that information, all your socials on here, but website, anything else you want to share.
So where two worlds meet, I know I'm like on clue. So where twoworldsmeet.com, you can find everything. And the book is available. It's in print. It's on Kindle. We also did an audio book, which is really wonderful. So especially for adult children or grandparents who might be commuting or things like that, it's available as an audio book as well. But where twoworldsmeet.com will get you everywhere. So, and if people like to support their local indie bookstore, it's available through bookshop.org. And of course, Amazon as well. You can find it, but where two worlds meet will connect you to everything.
Okay. And what's the next book about? What are we doing next, guys?
So we've got a couple things coming up. One thing that, and as I'm saying this out loud, Jerry and I have talked about this, and I tend to like flesh out ideas. So he's like, we're doing what? So we are doing a show. It's a live stream on June 1st, because that is at Grandparents Leashed on Facebook. That's where the show will be live at noon Central Time.
Okay.
And it's those who create together are great together, because there are some really fun grandparent-grandchild creators on social media right now, like on TikTok or on Instagram and Facebook, where they are entering each other's worlds by creating together. So the grandparents learning about different technology that's coming up, but then the grandkids are just loving it by having this time with their grandparents. So we're going to bring together some creators to talk about how co-creation has brought them closer together. So again, that's at noon Central Time on June 1st, which is National Intergenerational Day. And that'll be at Grandparents Unleashed on Facebook. And then we're also looking at creating, it's called Prompt a Memory story cards, because story is the shortest distance between two people. And so these are story cards, for example, that because grandparents and grandchildren can have the same experience, 40 years apart, 60 years apart. And Jerry has a story. Do we have time for one more story? If we don't,
is it short?
Jerry, can you do the short version?
Jerry tells good stories.
When he asked his granddaughter Jessica what was wrong, she would just say nothing. But then he told, what's your shortest version of the school guard story, Jerry?
It's a bullying experience where I was
Mm-hmm.
bullied because I was a patrol boy in grammar school, and
Ah.
I had to report kids to the principal if they didn't behave and talk what the patrol boy said. So she then told me a story about the bullying in the high school, and that's why I learned about the bullying by the cyberbullying.
Yeah.
And then
Uh-huh.
my granddaughter said after that girl was bullied, she went over to her and gave her a hug and told her
Mm.
she's not fat and I care about you, and that made the girl feel good.
Mm.
But it was
Mm.
his sharing a story of his
Mm-hmm.
experience in
Mm-hmm.
high school that prompted his granddaughter to open up with her experience, what was going on
Right.
now. Stories are so powerful that way. So
Yes.
we're creating almost like a game that people can do when they're hanging out together to
Uh-huh.
tell those kinds of milestone and important life happening stories.
Uh-huh. Oh,
We
wonderful.
have one of the cards has a heart on it, and
Uh-huh.
underneath it says, "Tell me about your first crush." So, Marcia, tell us about your first crush.
Okay, so I was at the pool. No, I'm joking.
Wait, you might not be saying it, but I know it's fully visually in your mind right
Yes, it
now.
is. Yes, it is. Jerry. You're making me blush. Okay.
Well, you were wearing a bikini. What do you want?
Yes, I was. Yes. And he got out of the water, and I was like, oh my God. That is so good. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. Thank you, Jerry. Anyway. Oh my. Okay, so we found out what's next. The prompt cards. I love that. Oh my God, that's going to be really awesome. And please consider this book club thing, please.
We'll
We can
do it.
talk
We
about
would
that
love to do it.
offline.
We're in.
Yes.
We'll talk to the book club. We would love to do that.
Yes. I think people will get so
Thank
much
you.
from this. Yes. So I am so sorry we're out of time, but please know that I have enjoyed myself, and I hope that you guys have too. And more importantly, our listeners will know about you and where two worlds meet, because I think everyone needs to really know about this. So thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
It was like
Thank
having a
you.
wonderful conversation.
Yes.
Thank you, Marcia.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.